Hi everybody, welcome back to Critical Mass. It's time for one of our critical reviews of classic movies again. And this time we actually have one that we all kind of liked. And I'm sure most people consider this movie as one of their favorite movies from their childhoods. Watching it, and it brings back fond memories, and there's such little subtleties in this movie. We're obviously talking about The Princess Bride. Alright, so Paul, who always likes to be analytical, is going to give us a breakdown of what The Princess Bride is.
Okay, Princess Bride is a movie by Goldman, who also did Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This movie came out in 1987 based on a book that was written and released in 1973. This was a satirical fantasy fable. So it wasn't the generic swords and sorcery, or maybe something like Legend or Labyrinth.
However, it had all of that. It
Yes.
had elements of all of that.
It went in to be a good movie, but also make fun of the genre itself. It was very self-aware.
Because let's be honest, fantasy up until this point was kind of a miss. We had movies like Willow, Labyrinth,
Conan.
Fantasy movies were largely were not hits.
Now, if you talk about a movie
They
like
weren't blockbuster.
Conan, Conan had its audience because it was a big muscle man warrior with a lot of sexy women in it. So it's going to have a dedicated audience because of the comics, and everybody knew it was going to be for a more adult audience.
Well, The Princess Bride didn't have a comic.
No, the first Conan didn't have a lot of sexy women in it.
Are you kidding me?
No.
The tower with the snake at the end?
So you're talking about he walks into a harem for 30 seconds of a movie, and you're talking the movie's full of sexy women.
But it's based on a comic book. It's based on a comic book that has a lot of adult content.
Let's take you back to The Princess Bride.
Would you stop interrupting me while I am interrupting you?
So I didn't see this movie when it first came out. It took me a few years to watch it. But some of the scenes in this movie, like everyone knows the classic line, you killed my father, I am prepared to die.
You killed my father, prepared to die.
Everybody does that. Even movies make spoofs of it in other movies and everything. I didn't know the guy runs away. I didn't know the villain ran away in that scene. And to me, that's the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom on the bridge with the gun and the sword. That's the part. That's before that.
So in The Princess Bride, you have a love story, you have the quest to get things done, you have monsters, you have combat, you have revenge, you have everything that you need.
And true love.
It's all about the true love.
And the silliest names ever given to princesses.
Princess Buttercup.
Princess Buttercup. Every time the prince announced, "You're Queen! Queen Buttercup," I just... What? It just sounds so ridiculous. But it works in the movie, but it sounds so ridiculous. So let's talk about some of the characters in the movie. What stood out for you guys in the movie?
Okay, so this movie literally had everything. It had Andre the Giant, who was the strong man. It had Amigo Montoya, which was the sword play. It had
Here's what I liked about it. I liked it that it was a fantasy movie that didn't take itself overly serious. It had some moments in it, like when they're climbing up. Andre the Giant has 3 people on his back, and he's climbing up the mountain with the rope like this, and it's as fake as anything. But it's so funny because he's just... and here comes the hero of the story, and he's catching up to them and everything. They cut the rope, and he's hanging there. And the main villain leader, he goes, "Kill him when he gets to the top." And then the guy's pacing up on top because he's impatient. He doesn't want to wait for the guy to climb. And they have banter back and forth between each other. It's not...
Great chemistry between all of the characters.
Yeah, and it was gentlemanly politeness too. I promise not to kill you when you get up here and all that. It had moments in it that was great.
It did.
When the guy finally gets a hold of the 6 fingered man, and he's gonna kill him, and he says, "My name is," and he does the big speech, and the villain runs away. I laughed my head off at that scene.
You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Because I was not expecting it. It was truly a great scene that enamored me to the movie, if you know what I mean.
Two things I really liked about this movie was that, like you said, the movie was very self-aware. So everybody was having gentlemanly rapport with each other, and there was no real negativity. So people would talk with the bad guys in a very polite manner, and everything was so positive and happy. And even though it was supposed to be a tense situation where they're confronting each other, no, everybody's happy and positive. The other thing I liked about this movie is that almost every single line is epic. They don't have throwaway lines. No, every line is epic, and so many of them are quotable. To this day, people say inconceivable.
Yeah. I would argue that this is probably among the most quotable movies ever made.
I would say so, yeah.
There's a line in almost every scene that you can quote, and people would understand where it came from.
I also like how they make fun of fantasy tropes. Like every name had a fantasy name, like the Pit of Despair, or the Cliffs of Insanity,
or the ROUSs,
the Rats of Unusual Size,
Rodents of Unusual Size.
Yeah, and they're just guys in a rat suit.
Which made it fun.
Yeah. No, it is surprisingly how well a movie that old now, quite a while, still stands up. And you can sit down on a Saturday night with your friends and watch this movie and still laugh your head off, no matter how many times you've seen it.
I mean, I learned more about iocane powder from this movie.
The 3 or 4 or 5 main characters easily could be considered the main character. Like Mandy Patinkin, who was Inigo Montoya, he was just as prominent in the film as Wesley, as was Vizzini, the side bad guy. They were so epic. They stole the thunder from the rest of the scene whenever they spoke. It wasn't like there's a good guy and you follow him and he's the hero. No, they were all great.
It's funny, like there's tropes in this movie that are so, he's dead. Well, he's
mostly dead.
He's mostly dead. There's a far difference between mostly dead and all dead. And, it was just...
You had Billy Crystal, a very small scene, but he was hilarious with his witch wife. You had the cardinal doing a wedding ceremony. He's not just a regular cardinal. No, he has a speech impediment. So everything about this movie except the 2 bad guys.
He starts talking with a wisp. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's just...
Even the narrator,
Peter Falk.
No, from the Wonder Years.
Fred Savage.
Fred Savage.
Yeah, because it's a storybook telling, right?
I know, but even the intro scene with them was, you could tell right away this was going to be a great movie before it even started.
Okay.
What I liked about how they did it was Goldman actually wrote this story because he wanted to write a story for his 2 daughters, and they were 4 and 7 years old. He says, what do you want this story to be about? And one of them said a princess, and the other one said a bride. So he said, okay, that's going to be the title. And it was neat because you had a grandfather telling the story to introduce the movie, just like he did to his daughters. Right. So, and Peter Falk did an amazing job.
Mm-hmm. You know what? That's like we came up with the name of the channel. We were saying, hey, how do you want to call the channel?
Cue insult to me.
No. Paul came up and said, we're going to be critical of movies, and someone else said, yeah, well, it's got to appeal to the masses. We came up with critical mass because we're not very smart. But The Princess Bride, I will still say, is a great movie. Check it out. Definitely worth a view. Out of all of our classic movies, I would guarantee most people will like this no matter what.
Yeah, I'd say if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. Watch it.